This is episode 95 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Welcome to episode 95 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today I have Ryan DeLaurentis on the podcast, and Ryan is a very active real estate wholesaler out of southwestern Ontario. So he's located in London, Ontario. He was originally from the Toronto area, moved down there, and he got into wholesaling, which is where you basically find willing sellers off market, and then you also sell that property after tying it up under contract to another investor. Without ever actually closing on that property. So you basically just act as a middleman and take a fee. Ryan has turned that into a very well-organized business. And I always love having entrepreneurs on this show, not just real estate investors. And I really do consider real estate investors entrepreneurs. So I love to draw the parallels between the organization and the determination needed to be successful. So Ryan really demonstrates the growth mindset needed to be a successful real estate investor and to be a successful entrepreneur. And he demonstrates the systems and willingness to relinquish control of his business so that he can grow. It was a really insightful discussion. We got to talking about some of Ryan's real estate as well, but we primarily focused on his wholesaling business and what he does there and how he adds value. For those of you who are looking to find better deals, I strongly encourage that you find local wholesalers in the areas that you're targeting. These people will be able to present you with deals that are not on the MLS and hopefully provide you with a deal at under market value. It doesn't always work out that way, so you do have to keep an eye on these wholesalers because not everybody's going to be selling a property at a discount. So make sure you're doing your numbers, make sure your deal meets your fundamental characteristics and criteria, and then of course proceed with caution. Just before we get into the episode, I wanted to ask you to please take a moment right now and rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts if you have not already. If you're watching on YouTube, give it that thumbs up. Leave me a comment, let me know what you think, and make sure you're subscribed with the notifications turned on so that you can get notified every time I launch a new episode. If you haven't already, make sure you grab the cash flow sheet on my website. You can just go to andrew-hines.com. I often refer to numbers in this cash flow sheet on my episodes. So I go through when I'm talking to an investor and I'm asking them about their numbers, I'm using this cash flow sheet. So if you want to be able to go through and reconstruct those numbers, by all means, feel free to grab that cash flow sheet. Without further ado, please enjoy episode 95 with Ryan DeLaurentis. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I have Ryan DeLaurentis on the show. Ryan, you're from London, right?
I'm actually originally from Toronto, but I am now living in London, yes, permanently.
I noticed the 416 number. Yeah, okay. So that answers one question.
Most people out here have the 226 number, but the original OG number is the 416.
Nice. So what brought you to London?
Well, our real estate business. Corey and I were working full-time jobs in Toronto in right up until about 2018. And then we had been investing a few years prior out this way in London and kind of surrounding area, doing weekly trips back and forth in our spare time away from our jobs. And we wanted to kind of build this up and get it going a little bit quicker. So we moved out here permanently I moved out here first without Courtney in October of 2018, and she followed in December.
Okay. And what were you doing? So, I mean, I'll do an intro for this, but you're obviously in the wholesaling business, DCI properties. So you were an investor before. What's your education? What's your background? What were you doing?
Yeah, good question. So when we got started, we read Rich Dad Poor Dad like most people do, started going around to a lot of events, joined RAIN, joined a couple other, the Right Club, a few other groups. And we had a couple of single family houses and a duplex. And we quickly realized we wanted to jump into multifamily. So we started doing that. I actually started our own multifamily club in Oakville. It was short-lived, but and so we bought a few multifamily properties out here in London. And we're kind of building our portfolio through buy and holds. But we realized a couple things. One, a couple of the deals we had gotten, we did buy off market a couple through a pocket listing, and one was just a direct with seller off-market purchase. And we were like, this is actually a lot easier than going through the MLS and multiple offers and going through multiple realtors to actually work with the end seller. So that was our first realization. And then the second one is that if we wanted to potentially leave our jobs and make this more of a business, that we might be going in the wrong order and potentially building more for passive when what we really wanted was a replacement of active income.
Okay, so you were replacing your active income. What kind of jobs were you working?
So I've been in sales for 10 years. I was in insurance prior to, had my own insurance book of business. And so that's what I was doing full time. And Courtney was actually a seamstress. So she was making custom shoes for film, theater, and TV. We joke because the shop that she was working for in Toronto actually made shoes for Fantastic Beasts, and it won Best Costume in 2017, I think, at the Oscars. So unfortunately, they didn't get any statue or any kind of like little award or anything. But yeah, that's what she was doing, and so she's been a seamstress. So this whole real estate thing, computers, all that is all brand new to her.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the typical path into this, but so I guess it just started with really necessity. Like you guys were going for some form of financial independence, and then you found yourself doing the wholesale business, or you kind of found your way into the wholesale business out of necessity to find better deals. Is that a fair summary?
Better deals, and I think just an urge to want to grow my own business. I think I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit in doing kind of side gigs and side hustles on the side of even having my sales jobs in the past. So just out of a real want to kind of run our own ship. And I think, real estate and kind of finding off market deals and using some of that sales experience I had in the past gave us a pretty good opportunity to do that.
Okay. So you mentioned active income, obviously wholesaling, you're finding deals off market and selling them in your own little private off market email list.
Yeah.
So you've created your own market there. Are you still building an investment portfolio?
Yes. But it's not at the forefront right now of our time. So again, I think what I realize, and I think what it takes people a little bit to realize, is that they get into real estate wanting to own a few rental properties and fully believe that will allow them to leave their job. And not wanting to crush hopes of people that are listening, but I think that's a really tough journey because I think it's being built in the wrong order or in the reverse. Yeah. So, owning rental properties that are going to cash flow a couple $100 a door and appreciate is fantastic for 10, 20 years from now. But in wanting to leave, a current job that you may not enjoy and be in real estate full time, I think the focus has to be on active income.
And I agree with you. It's very rare that somebody can quit their job, within a 5-year time horizon, unless they're going at it very aggressively. Like Kellen Panicha, I just had him on the show. He's an example of somebody within 3 years, he got laid off from his job and didn't care. But he was investing in a very high cash flow type of property. For most people, especially in London now, which is your center of business, but of course you branch out from there. You've mentioned that to me. Most Southern Ontario markets, cash flow that's meaningful is going to take some time.
Agreed.
Because you're getting into properties and there's like, $200,000 of cash flow if you're doing well on something you're buying in the $400,000 to $500,000 range. But maybe there's better opportunities with you, the wholesaler. So enlighten me, tell me a bit about what you do as a wholesaler in your business and what you're offering to people. And then we'll dig into a little bit more about your portfolio after that.
Sure. I just wanted to jump back on one thing you mentioned, just in referencing Kellen. And I think it's something that a lot of people struggle with. I actually talk to people about this quite a bit, is they have their brain split. And it's almost like having schizophrenia in a way where part of you is geared towards a job where you work potentially for someone else and you have different bosses and managers and agendas. And that's where you occupy, say, 60, 70% of your time. And the other, 30, 40% of your time and mindset is geared towards this real estate thing or this venture. And operating there myself for a very long period of time, knowing that the insurance jobs and the sales jobs I was doing is not what I ultimately wanted, does create a lot of stress, anxiety on its own. And it wasn't until I really cut ties with that business entirely that our business here really started to take off. So the only kind of advice or encouragement I would give is if you're 100% sure that what you're doing now is not what you want to do, our systems and our culture and society is set up in a way so that it's very, very hard for you to actually fully fail and go bankrupt. So if you have someone that you could potentially stay with, or you have some kind of support system, or you even have a rental property that you could sell and live off of for a bit. Courtney and I took our first property that we ever bought and did a reverse joint venture where we brought in money for a share of equity after the fact so we could leave our jobs and start this business. And so I think, in thinking about your mind and the time and thoughts and the space that those thoughts occupy, it is very freeing to focus on one thing rather than always having your time split on two things.
I agree with you completely. Focus on something you enjoy that's profitable and good things will come.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
now,
you're enjoying this
it
business
is hard
then.
to do. It is hard to do. And I don't want
Absolutely.
to, recommend that people, run out tomorrow and quit their jobs, but it is definitely something to think about and something to really examine.
Yeah.
If you're not happy where you are, how much further ahead could you get being in an industry or being in another type of role or just in a different mindset altogether by being focused more on what you actually want to do?
I absolutely agree with that. I mean, I've hit a few breaking points myself where I was doing things I really didn't want to do, and I was much more aggressive on my transitions to, burn every bridge behind me. Not that I'm recommending that, because I think that there's a time and a place, and it comes down to a person's personality. For not everybody will that be correct, but it depends on your circumstance. For me,
For sure.
when I dove into real estate and really made it my primary occupation, it was like I had no other option at the time. It was like do or die. And hey, that's a good motivator.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So
yeah.
you give us some context. I mean, as far as wholesalers go, I know Luke Boren's a big one, but I feel like you're probably equivalent in size or getting there in terms of Ontario wholesalers and the volume you do. Do you have any sort of gauge on that?
Yeah, I do. Luke and I are pretty close friends. We talk almost daily and help each other quite a bit. And he's helped us quite a bit in growing out our business. But currently to date, for 2020, we're on pace to do about 100 deals this year, maybe just shy of that. So we currently cover Southwest Ontario. We recently expanded out into Calgary, Alberta, with a new rep there. There's currently 14 people on the team.
Okay. And that's something I want to dig into a little bit as well. Your team building, how you've done that, what's working for you, what's not, because I think, some of our listener base is at that point, including myself, where building a team around me is one of my top priorities, building people who can help me and kind of get rid of some of the things that I'm not good at or don't have the passion for in my day-to-day operation. So we'll come to that, unless you have a few comments you want to say right now in terms of best practices there and what you see as working.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And I think as investors and people in real estate, we're often looking at properties and things that we can tangibly put our money into that are going to have a return. And I would say for me, and it's funny because Sarah Larby and I were just chatting about this the other day, because her podcast is called Where Should I Invest?
Mm-hmm.
And I firmly believe that in your own head and in other people are the two best places to invest above any property. I think that investing in the right people that can surround you and help build your vision of where you want to go is going to return 10x what any individual property would.
So give me an example.
So when Courtney and I started, the first person that we brought onto our team was a guy named Ryan Parker. And at the time, Courtney and I didn't have any experience with HR. We didn't have any experience with operations. We didn't really know how to put a budget together to operate our business. We weren't very good on marketing. And so these were all things that we realized that we didn't know well. I knew sales. I had the vision. We had some money set aside that we could actually start growing. But as we were getting going, we realized that there were things that we just didn't know how to do. And it was a really big risk because at the time, I was just on the verge of leaving my job. Courtney had already left hers. We had just moved to this new city. And now we were looking at potentially now having to be responsible for another person. But we made the jump. We found Ryan. And he's been instrumental in helping us grow out our business ever since.
So what's his skill set and how does that complement?
So his skill sets primarily as it is in the day-to-day now. Now, the other thing I will say is some of your early people are probably going to evolve. They're probably going to be a jack of all trades at the start and start to really niche in on where they're comfortable as your company grows or as you grow. So right now, I would say his best skill sets are in helping us budget and plan almost like as a controller or CFO of our money and what we're investing in, and continuing to help me look forward by being my eyes and ears on just providing another source of feedback or where I might not be looking. He's helped us in HR when it comes to interviewing and onboarding new people. And again, just being a second set of eyes and seeing things from a different lens or perspective. And he's been very good on helping us strategically build out a marketing plan that helps us source and acquire good deals.
Are there any other key positions that have kind of come after him that have really, really worked for you and really helped you grow to the next level?
Yeah, so I would say there's probably two or three, and everyone on our team right now, I'm super pumped about, and obviously I think most people think that their teams are the best, but I truly think that ours is, and we have some awesome people on here. But one of the hardest things for me to give up, being the salesperson, was the day-to-day deals themselves, and going out on the appointments and meeting with sellers and being that face of the company. And so I met a girl named Bertha at an event actually here in London, which again just speaks to the importance of how you can connect and meet people through these types of events. And at the time, I was looking for someone to help in an admin role, and she put up her hand. We were sitting at the same table. I did a pitch, and we ended up chatting that evening. She came in for a quick interview, and after she left, I said to Courtney and Parker, she can't just do admin. She's too talented, too bright, and she almost didn't realize her own potential. And so I kind of took under my wing for the next 3-4 months to train her on how to replace me on acquisitions. She was pumped about real estate, wanted to do more, wanted to learn, and just came with a very open mind of, I want to learn this inside and out, and I have a feeling like I can be really good at it. And so that, in combination just with her previous skill set and drive, she's now taken over fully on our day-to-day deals. And I firmly believe she's one of the best people in her job in the country. And I think that's a kudos to her for putting in the time and being willing and open to learn.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a similar philosophy. I really do think it's about attitude and willingness to learn, more so than what a person knows these days.
It's 100% on attitude. And you'll see a lot of people will hire for skill and fire for attitude.
Yeah. Now, the one thing is with admin, it's funny. I went to university, one of the country's best business schools, but actually have a very opposite opinion. Like I'm much more interested in somebody who's done, gone out and done something, has an attitude, and is willing to learn, than somebody who's super polished, because book smarts and street smarts seem to be different things.
For
One
sure.
they're not learned together in school these days,
No.
unfortunately.
No.
Yeah. So it's cool to see that perspective. I mean, I've been pretty open. I've got my ads out for admin, but I've never hired an admin. I have my construction team on the ground. But for me, relinquishing control, you talk about not being the sales guy. For me, not being the guy in control of every aspect of my inner business is a challenging thing to get over. Any tips on that one?
Figure out what you're really good at and where your skill sets are, and really try and get your mind around being able to bring in someone that's potentially can do it just as well, if not better. It's so freeing to be able to delegate and have someone take things off your plate, to free that mind space to focus on the things that Andrew is good at. And I know it's an easy thing to say, but it's a tough thing to actually do and practice. So start small. Start with, maybe you bring on somebody part-time to just test the waters and see how it goes. But choose things that you really don't enjoy doing, and that I have a sheet and I can share it with you. It's something called drainers and drivers. It's a very simple sheet. One side of the page has drivers, so things that actually drive you, motivate you, give you energy you enjoy doing. And the other side is drainers, things that drain your energy you don't enjoy doing and disrupt your day as things that you don't look forward to. Try and get someone to handle as many of those drainers as possible.
Yeah, I'd love to see that sheet. And because I feel, for me personally, I feel my level of productivity could be, even just at a personal level, even not as a team, up here, but I'm sort of down here because of, to a certain degree, just feeling a little bogged down in some of those drainers that you've talked about, just those things that I just really don't like doing anymore. I mean, there might have been a time where I liked them, but now I'm not enjoying it. And that's where I think that's the key sign. It's time to grow. It's time to
not only that, Andrew, you can find somebody who their driver is doing those tasks.
Right. That's exactly the thing, right? Complementary interests that
100%.
are different. So we had a couple of things we were emailing, and you had mentioned a couple of questions and things that you would like to go over. I mean, for one thing, in your investing strategy, one of the things I found really interesting is you mentioned to me you wanted to move away from multifamilies when just about everybody and their dog wants to go into multifamilies.
Yes.
Tell me more.
Well, in starting out in multifamily, we went small because that's all we could afford. And that's really all that we could, honestly, I think our bandwidth in terms of mental space could handle. So our multifamilies were in the 6 to 12 unit range. And I think what we realized is that they bring with them, especially in that size, I would say probably under 30 units, where you don't necessarily have an on-site super. Even if you have a property manager, they bring with them a lot of challenges. There's a lot of tenant turnover. There can be a lot of damage to the property, depending on the location and area it's in. You can have people breaking in the same week. We had someone break into our laundry machines and ruin one of them, and then spray paint a bunch of swastikas and different things all over the apartment that had to then be painted fully. So as much as good of a property manager as you can have, that does help save time on some of those things. You're still going to get those calls when those things come up. And if you're paying a property manager to potentially help turn over your units, there's a lot of money potentially going out the door every time there's a tenant turnover, which again, in those smaller apartment buildings, there seem to be. And I just find that at that size of like the 6 to 20 units, it's not scalable enough. And so for us, I think what we realized is that for what we wanted in our passive portfolio, we wanted passive tenants that could be self-sufficient. And, instead of getting a call about someone breaking into the building and stealing laundry money and breaking the machine, we now get calls from tenants about putting a garden in the backyard.
And that's definitely nice. And I know what you're talking about. So you're saying single families, they're people that just want to make a home out of it. Different type of tenant than the ones that are renting a 1 or a 2 bed in an apartment building.
Yeah, and the asset class is more liquid. There's more opportunities to buy them at prices that make sense and can cash flow well. Multifamily is just it's a rarer asset class. I think there's a lot more people in that space now, so it becomes a little bit harder to find good deals. The sellers that you're working with are often more sophisticated, so it can be a little bit more challenging to negotiate. And again, overall, depending on what you want that property for and what you want it to achieve, for us, we just realized that single family achieves the wealth building that we want through the appreciation mortgage paydown, with less hassle and headaches with having better quality tenants.
Okay, and I could see that, but would you agree that there are several variables there in terms of the age of the building you're looking at? If you're looking at multis,
For sure,
and the quality of finishes, it may attract an A-type tenant.
100%.
In which case that could be a lot more hands off.
I mean, I'll caveat that by saying the couple of apartment buildings we've had have actually been our best deals in terms of what we've actually made off of them. We just sold them because we didn't want the headache anymore. And because we now had another business or a different revenue channel that was replacing the active income that we potentially wanted from having those apartment buildings to begin with. So again, my feedback is just, really try and take time to understand what it is you want and what you want from them. I think a lot of people chase the multifamily as this vision or idea that it's going to give you something that you don't have now. Be careful what you wish for, because I think we found out that as much as we wanted the extra cash flow from multifamily, it also came with extra headaches.
Well, yeah, I'll definitely say that with lower asset classes on the single family homes too, the cash flow can appear great and actually isn't. Especially if you've got a rundown building, which I've had, wonky floors up and down, not done structurally right. It attracts a poorer tenant who's going to be more work, going to leave the place in worse shape, and then more things break all the time. It is enough to make somebody who invested in real estate not want to invest in real estate
100%.
anymore. Yeah, I've been there. First property I ever bought, I would never buy that. I mean, sure, I would buy it if it was cheap enough and then just, tear it down or something. But I would never buy a property like that at this point. That's just not what I would want in my portfolio. So on that note, what's your portfolio look like right now? So you said mostly single families. What ballpark? How many houses are we talking about?
Actually, it's not that many. It's about 8 or 10 right now, and we're slowly growing that because we're much more focused on growing the business and our active income right now. So for me, for our vision right now is to keep growing our wholesale business and our team here. We're adding a couple new divisions of the company this year. And in the future, as we start to collect more of that active cash, we will then look for passive places to put it. And in the meantime, if we pick up a couple houses here and there, perfect, that fit our criteria that we want to own. But our focus right now isn't on the passives game.
Gotcha. Yeah, absolutely it does. And, I've had my attention very similarly on my active business, haven't really been as focused on acquiring deals. I go in phases though. So I'll do active for a while and then I'll switch back. I mean, for me, it's hard to give up building something for the future. I'm most satisfied by building something for the future, but you're also building something for the future in your active business in terms of what it can do and what it can continue to generate. So that's really cool. Plus, you're going to find some good deals in your business.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, yeah, we do. And again, I think that the difference, which I've actually really had to shift my mind around, because I'm on Facebook and I'm on different things and I see people adding properties or portfolio. And sometimes I get that, fear of missing out. But I try and stay grounded and reminding myself that I am investing. I'm just investing in a different class or a different business. So rather than investing in properties right now, I'm more interested and more active in investing in the business and growing the business and growing different divisions of the business. And those will generate cash flow and have equity in the future. So the premise and the principles are still there. I think that the business and businesses can potentially generate more cash flow than could, say an individual property. So that's where my focus and attention on, and that's why, I'm so heavily geared towards investing in people and investing in learning and education and, my own, development and my people's development. So, yeah.
That's awesome. And I really think that that's valuable. Again, I'm doing very similar thing right now. It's something, like you said, these are skills, the things you've learned, the team you've built. If that was ever taken away from you, you'd be able to rebuild it so much faster the second time. It's like Donald Trump after, he went bankrupt the first time, how quickly you rebound when something goes bad the first time you can pull it all back together. Like, I think that's infinitely valuable for a lifetime. Like, I know real estate wise, I could redo what I've done to date, provided the same circumstances, so much more efficiently. So why don't we talk a little bit, like some people here who are new aren't going to know what wholesaling is. So can you just give a run through of what it is that you do in your business, how you're providing value to people, and then maybe we can go through an example of a deal that you've sold to somebody and how they've won.
Sure. So I'll first go through the seller side and kind of give you our value prop there. And then I'll go through the buyer side so we can kind of take the deal from kind of start to finish. Mm-hmm. So on the seller side, we market direct to sellers as wholesalers looking to buy properties privately without real estate agents. A lot of our sellers are just looking for ease and convenience and potentially just an alternative option that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to open their house to showings and having a bunch of people come through. And, sometimes there's negative stigmas and, previous dealings that they've had with realtors that just makes our value proposition more appealing to them. So our marketing goes out in a variety of different ways. We do some postcards, we do some online stuff, some different outbound stuff that we do now. And sellers reach out to us directly. We then work with them, setting time to come out and check out the house, get the property under contract on a standard purchase and sale agreement. And then we look to see what price we got the property under contract for, and would this still be a deal to an investor if we then assign that contract for a profit to somebody else. So that's where our buyers come in on people who are looking for these off-market type of properties. We then add a wholesale fee or an assignment fee on top of our original purchase price, and then send that out to our buyers list to see if there's any interest in this type of property that we've gotten under contract. So the seller benefits because they're getting a better frame deal with better terms from us. And for a lot of people out there, I think there's a mental hurdle on why would someone sell their property for less. And I think people forget that in any trade, there is time, money, and energy. And depending on your stage in life and what's important to you, you might be in need or willing to trade one of those for the other two, or vice versa. So for a lot of our sellers, they have equity in their property that they're willing to trade for less time or just less stress and energy that a typical sale might bring. And so for them, they see value in kind of going through that process with us and just knowing that, we're very upfront and let them know that they could make more money listing it on the MLS and potentially working with a realtor. But for them, that's not the ultimate goal. And again, it's a very small segment of the population that feels that way, but we have a lot of 5-star testimonials that we get from the sellers we work with. So just be open and mindful that yes, people potentially are willing to take less, but you have to offer them something of value to trade. And so for us, we're offering less stress, less energy, and potentially less time and better terms for a trade on money. So that's on the seller side.
That's so critical. My mom was just looking for a house, and she actually just bought one in the Dorchester area. And I kept telling her, And I was watching your listings. I just didn't see anything come out
Okay.
there. But I kept telling her, I'm like, Mom, I think you should do some off-market marketing, door knock, flyers, whatever. Like, let's get you an off-market property. She just could not get past it. She's like, well, no one's going to sell me their property for less. Like, why would they do that? They could just go on the market. I'm like, you don't realize, like, some people just can't stand the thought of somebody coming through their house.
For
They're
sure.
embarrassed. Like, I actually bought one off market from a lady who her house was spick and span. It was just old. And she was so embarrassed. Like, she wouldn't even let me in. She's like, oh, can you come back? And like, I could see, like, there was just like, it was so tidy compared to like even my house most days. But some people just, it's the way they feel. And to paint everybody with the same brush and to act like everybody cares about getting top dollar just because the person making that judgment feels that way. That just doesn't make sense. And I agree with you. That's something that's so hard for people to get past.
It is. And I think I've realized too that value is all perception. You and I, Andrew, could go out today and look at the exact same house, both walk through it, and I think it's worth 400 and you think it's worth 3. Who's right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and the other thing is, if they're happy with 3, rock and roll, right? If they say that's what they want. And so a couple of things I like what you said there. One, I think gold nugget, time, money, and energy are the things that go into any trade. I think I've never heard that said before, but it makes total sense. Right there with you. And being upfront. So yeah, the other one was being upfront with people. Don't tell them that you're going to give them the most money they could possibly get.
No, not at all.
Any conversation I've had with people off market, I've always been very upfront. I've said, look, like, I'm not the guy that's going to come give you the most money, but I am the guy that could potentially make your life easier, help make this transition better for you. And, don't show your house to a million people kind of thing. So,
and people know that.
Yeah.
So I think being upfront with them just demonstrates that you are an honest company and you're not trying to pull the wool over their eyes. And I think they appreciate that. And it makes them like you even more.
Yeah, because you're willing to tell them something that most people wouldn't.
Exactly.
You could even say, yeah, I probably shouldn't say this, but you'll definitely get more if you list.
That's right. No, we're very upfront and honest. Yeah. And again, I think it encourages people to say, you know what, this is a good company. I want to work with them. And generally speaking, people just want to work with people they know, like, and trust. And if you can build that trust by being honest and upfront, I think it goes a long way in any transaction, whether that's with a seller or a buyer, in anything.
Yeah, exactly. Don't blow smoke on people because they can tell, even if consciously they don't know, the subconscious level, they'll feel off about you. It's just not worth it. I just think integrity is the most important thing we've got in business today. So
I agree.
That's super critical. Do you brand differently from DCI properties for your buyers? Do you have a separate brand, for your sellers? Like, do you have a separate brand for you as the home buyer? Or are you DCI properties?
No, we don't. That's a good question. It might actually be something we should consider, but no, we generally operate under the same umbrella. And a couple of the new divisions that we're building out are still probably going to be under the same sort of branding and DCI properties kind of parent company. But no, we haven't. It's been kind of all under the same branding. I think we don't necessarily have a separate. Actually, Jason might have built a separate landing page for our buyers when they click to kind of join our list. So I think that does exist. See, again, I'm not really in the day-to-day.
I love it, man. That's great.
I don't actually know, but yeah. So I think we brand under the same name, but there might be different landing pages depending if you're a buyer or seller.
And that would make sense, yeah, because there's going to be a different process depending on which page they landed on, how you try and reach that person again on the different platforms. So you've got probably a team that handles the digital side of things and the email side of things. So what are you doing on the daily basis?
Yeah, it's a good question. My primary focus, and I think where I bring the most value, is in trying to plan for the future and set up better relationships that can build us long term, and look for opportunities for education that I can bring back with the team, looking for potential areas where we might be inefficient or not operating at our best capabilities with the resources we have. So I'm constantly thinking about what do we have in abundance of, whether it's human resources, capital, knowledge, network, and how can I tap into those and help us grow even further. So that's kind of where I spend most of my time, getting updates from the team on where certain things are and where they need help.
Hey guys, I just wanted to take a moment and give a shout out to a couple of very important local businesses to me. As you know, this lockdown has been tough on everyone, and small businesses have been taking the brunt of it. So there's two specific businesses I wanted to give a shout out to. This is a completely unpaid promotion. They didn't ask me to do this, but I wanted to give them a shout out because I think they're really important and I want to see them be successful. So one is New York Men's Grooming Lounge here in Burlington, Ontario. I always see Sergio every month. They do a fantastic job. Their atmosphere there is fantastic. There's usually some Frank Sinatra playing in the background. They're a great establishment, even if you just want to go in and have an espresso or have a beer and chat. It really is a lounge and social location, which is just such a unique concept in today's market. Really like those guys. I really want to see them succeed. If you're looking for a fantastic men's haircut and grooming experience, I highly recommend them. The next one I wanted to give a shout out to is Dr. Mike White over at the Momentum Health Clinic in Hamilton. Dr. Mike has been able to help me many times over the years when I've hurt my back. He's a chiropractor, so I'd be in a position where I couldn't even walk, I couldn't turn. I was in an agonizing pain, and I'd go to Dr. Mike, and usually I'm 100% better within a week. Now, I know it's a touchy thing with a medical service, so always consult with your medical professional before seeking any form of treatment. I just wanted to let you know my experience here, and I certainly think Mike White is worth considering. I've included the details for both of these contacts in my show notes. Please show them support if you see fit. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I feel the same way. I'm very much bigger picture thinking. I always want to be thinking bigger picture. How do I grow bigger, better? I don't like the transactional. I love being creative. Like I like doing a deal. Somebody gives me an engineering problem sort of on a house, like, hey, we've got this house and we're trying to do this. How are we going to do that? Like, I like working with the engineer and crafting the deal. But once I get bored, I want somebody else to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be the guy hanging the drywall in the house or anything like that. But so I'm looking ahead personally, like, hey, what's the next project? Is it a development? What am I going to do? I balance, the active business versus building towards the future, as you're doing too. You're at you said 8 to 10 properties. So why don't we go through an example here just before we get off the topic of wholesaling? Can you give me an example of a deal that's been a win for you and a win for the person that you sold it to, and we just maybe go through some of those numbers, like just in back of the envelope? It doesn't you don't have to have specific numbers, but just roughly.
Yeah, so we would potentially get a property under contract in London, say for $280,000.
Okay.
And then we would assess it, figure out what numbers work for a flip versus a buy and hold for an investor. We would send that property out to our buyers list for, say, $300,000. Walk a couple of our buyers through, and if a couple of them liked it, then we potentially get an offer, and on that property we would say make $20,000, and without actually closing on it. So at the time of closing, the buyer would pay our lawyer the assignment fee, and they would proceed to close for that original $280 with the seller and their lawyer.
Right. So an important thing for buyers to know is that they're going to have to pay that $20K. They can't finance that. So the purchase is still $280. They're going to have to pay the $20K out of pocket. And part of doing business, build it into your deal. What could you get where the buyer would be buying something for $300,000 from you? What kind of property in London could be had for that? Little detached.
Yeah.
Okay.
It varies a lot, and not to be ambiguous, but yeah, no, we just sent one out today, I think. That was in St. Thomas, and I think that was for 360 or 365. I think it's a pretty good deal. I think, personally, I'd probably be willing to pay up to 380 for it. So I still think our buyers are potentially going to get a good deal on it. So but it really varies. We don't necessarily target specific areas or price points. It's more so just, is there value there, and will our buyers or investors see value in that property?
So how much under market value are you typically trying to get it for your buyers? Like, what do you aim to be able to give it to your buyers for? How much?
Yeah,
on the market?
that's a really good question. And I think that's been a hard thing to answer, and not trying to not answer the question, but because there are so many different types of buyers and so many people looking for different types of properties with different strategies, it's hard for us to determine what you're willing to pay when we don't know how you're going to approach that property.
Mm-hmm.
You may want to do a live-in flip on all of your flips and do a lot of the work yourselves. If that's the case, you may be willing to pay a bit more than someone who is hiring on a GC or, bringing on a bunch of contractors to do the work. You could be someone who really focuses on finding properties in very specific areas where you see the appreciation, in double digits, and might be willing to pay a bit more than someone who's looking for, 100% BRRRR to get all their money out.
Right.
So I think we try and just put deals out that we feel like are a good value to our buyers and let them determine where that price ends up and what they're willing to pay based on their strategy.
Gotcha. So for example, and that does make sense. I get it. Like, you want to maximize profit for your business, create a win-win. It's just a question of who that win-win is with. It's going to be the person, if the person's willing to live in it and rent out themselves and they get the property for 10 grand under what it might go otherwise, maybe that's it. Maybe it's just that they couldn't find a property and that one happened to suit. So I get it. So with that one today, I think you said it was 365. I think I saw that email. What do you figure that one, if you had to ballpark it, is worth on the market?
There was a similar property that I think Jason was showing me that sold without a garage for 405 in October. So, okay. I think you could very easily clean that property out, maybe paint it and list it for $399 and probably get 420.
Okay.
And I think finished, it'd probably be somewhere closer to 450, 460 if you put in the 20, 30K that it needs. So I'm a big proponent in flips of our model previously, because we've done quite a few of them. It's just been not, am I allowed to swear on here?
Yeah, you could swear.
not super shitty. So I'm always of the mindset that you get your biggest buyer pool at the cheapest price point. And some of those buyers may actually help you push the price up. So I think sometimes people are looking to do a huge, bell and whistles reno when just enough will do. Just mortgageable is actually what we aim for, so that the new buyer coming in can qualify on a mortgage, but potentially put their own spin on the finishes they want to do.
In fairness, though, the house you sent out today, nice brick structure, that's mortgageable.
For sure it is.
Mortgageable, you got to have finished kitchen, finished bathrooms. You can't have, giant hunks of drywall and vapor barrier ripped open. Right. But yeah, so from what I'm taking, you're saying kitchens and bathrooms, do a tidy up. You don't have to go crazy, just tidy it up. If your floor needs to be replace it with something basic, and that's good enough. Yeah, a coat of paint, and usually that'll do the trick. That's the lipstick reno, right?
That's right. And you just let the market carry it sometimes. If you are into a lot of flips, and you'll be surprised that retail buyers just want to own a home.
So let's say hypothetically that one just sold for 365. We'll do a hypothetical what that might make. So you have your assignment already in there. So the buyer buys it. They might say, go through that reno, and you said maybe invest $30,000.
On a high end, I think that's what they could do. So if you want to go that route, sure. Again, I think you could get away with a 5K reno, but
okay, 5K. Let's do that. Okay, so what would you do in the 5K then, like, hypothetically?
I would do junk removal and paint.
Okay, yeah, because that house was filled with junk. So just tidy it up, paint it up, make it not smell bad if it smells bad, and then
so 7 if you want to be ultra conservative. But
okay, I'll put 7 in there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so 7 there, and then so your buy and improve is equal to about 372. And what do you figure you could list it for at that point?
399.
399.
That's going to encourage the most amount of traffic in that area for people coming through.
Okay, so then sale is going to be probably, you're thinking 420? 420,
yeah.
Yeah. So in that case, they're going to have a realtor fee with, what do you figure they'd pay? 3.5%? Or
3.5%, 4%.
Okay, so times, we'll say 4 to be conservative. So you got 16,000 on that. So say you sold for 420, you're going to be 420 minus 372 minus the 16.8. So could potentially have $31,000 in profit there, just for doing a quick flip, like just quickly come in. Of course, there's going to be legal fees and interest there too. So maybe hack off another 5, so maybe 25 grand. That's not bad for a quick clean out and list, though.
Not at all.
Yeah, so there's an example, and I just wanted to go through that because to show an example of how wholesaling can be a real win-win for you win, you get an assignment fee, buyer wins, they get something as well.
And the seller wins because on this deal, they had a really tight timeline on when they wanted to be out of there. So they win too. They get the price that they want on the terms that they wanted.
Okay. Yeah, and that's a critical one too. We didn't mention before, timing is a big thing. The one I bought was from a lady that couldn't wait. She had already bought a new house and there was no way she was going to list her house and close it before this date. And I'm like, okay, well, I can do that. And I think I probably got it for about 110,000 under what it was worth at the time. So it's crazy what you can do if you're willing to accommodate the seller's needs. So that's great that you shared that.
Keeping the time, energy, and money in perspective. Sometimes you have a lot of it, sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
Depending on what stage of life you're at or what you have going on, time may be the biggest driver.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are you working on now? You mentioned to me that you have something coming down the pipeline. So give us your plug here.
Yeah, so I'm currently working on building out a couple new divisions of the company. So we have done a lot of flips in the past, and they haven't always gone that well. And be very frank, like we've done about 20 or 25, and there's no one on our team currently that's very good at managing flips. And we quickly realized that we took losses on a few of them. So we're actually bringing in an in-house project manager and someone that's going to be able to kind of run that division to be able to sort of scale and hopefully do more with someone that can negotiate with contractors, check in on properties, be on site a little bit more, and make sure that those projects are running smoothly. So yeah, that'll be coming next year. I think we have someone pretty good and qualified lined up for that. And then we're also going to be starting a new service for real estate investors to help them review their deals. So that's going to be coming in 2021. We don't have the back end stuff built out quite yet. I'm not sure when this podcast will air. But if you're interested in learning more, I would probably just say to email me and I can kind of fill you in on details, just because we don't have a lot of that back end stuff done yet, but it is coming. So if they want to email me, it's just ryan@dciproperties.ca.
ryan@dciproperties.ca. Okay. And any other, since we're on this topic, any other links you want me to share, or your social profile? Like, where's the best place for people to follow you if they just kind of want to see what you're up to?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm going to be working as part of one of my things to get more content out and be more active on some of these social media things, because I'm not very good on it right now. Facebook, honestly, is probably the best place to connect or follow right now. That's really all I'm active on. But if you do want to join our buyers list, I would suggest emailing Jason, Jason, at dciproperties.ca, and he'll make sure that you get set up and added there if you are looking for off-market properties in Southwest Ontario or now in Calgary.
Nice. Yeah, okay. So I'll include those in the show notes so that everyone has access to them. Just to clarify though, do you do just like east of London, or do you stop at the eastern border of London? Like, are you in Woodstock as well? Are you doing deals down there? Where does your territory sort of stop?
Kind of on the Guelph, KWC, Brantford border.
Okay. So you go that far east and then the rest is all west. Are you down to like Windsor as well?
Yep. Yeah, we've actually, people on our buyers list will see we've been pretty active in Windsor, Sarnia, Chatham. So yeah, pretty well all over Southwest Ontario. Yeah.
Up north, like Grand Bend, ever get stuff up there?
Occasionally, it's fewer and far between, and people looking for cottages, especially now with COVID, is a little bit more rare. So we have come across leads there, but it's not as frequent.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. I just want to give some clarification for people if they're looking. Like I found
Yeah, sure.
your listings have been pretty cool. Like I've saw a lot of decent looking deals. It was just maybe not exactly what I was looking for, but I do think that there's a lot of great deals that come out through that list. So definitely people should get on that.
For sure.
I'm on a lot of wholesalers lists, and I don't even know how I got there, but I think that's by design. But hey, I don't blame them. If you know people are in the market, send them.
That's right. No, feel free. Yeah, add them up. Absolutely. No, we try and do a good job making it fair and encouraging our buyers to come out and check out properties. And if it is your first time, my focus and emphasis when you are working with wholesalers would be to secure your financing first and come from a position of power and strength, and knowing that you have potentially a private lender or a line of credit or some other type of financing secured, because it is very, very challenging to get wholesale deals through a traditional bank. So if you're working on your first deal, that would be my first point of contact, maybe even before joining our buyers list, would be to make sure you have some financing in place to be able to purchase these off-market deals.
That's a great point. And for me personally, I mean, I can't see a reason why it would be hard to buy one if it was in great condition. But if it's really dumpy, the kitchen's ripped apart or something like that, I could certainly see why the bank would say, no, we're not going to do that. So that's a great point. So this is where private financing can come in handy. Anybody thinking about buying on a wholesaler's list, like that should be in your toolkit, in my opinion, because if you find the right deal, you don't want to not be able to buy it because you don't have the financing. And then, like you said, a home equity line of credit, super useful, especially if you got $300,000 or $400,000 of available credit there. You can just, no approval needed. It's there and ready to go. Of course, I like to reserve that money for renovations. I would rather get a private first mortgage and use that money for renovations if I were going to do it.
I think that's the best way to go. And even if you're burring, I often suggest to people to go private and then go back to the bank later.
Yeah, that's what I do.
As much the bank will tell you that they'll do the purchase and then they'll do the refi later, it'll never come in as high as if you take it to them nicely finished and done and all put together for the first time. So I always recommend going private and then coming back to the bank later. And again, it allows you to operate from more of a position of strength. You don't need additional appraisals. You don't potentially need additional walkthroughs. And some of that stuff can be disruptive when you're trying to work on a private deal and trying to cause less stress for the seller or for the wholesaler you're working with. So knowing that financing is in place and you can come in confidently is huge.
Yeah, I have to agree. I would say the big reason I would go private coming in is just because I don't like working with the bank. I find them to be a whole big pain in the butt. Like they're just such a pain in the butt, where I know if I have like a handful of people who work with me, like just private money, they just promissory note kind of money. And then I've got people who will lend me private mortgages as well. I know I can be a lot more flexible if I'm doing that.
Sure.
And then, like once I have the property, I've got it rented, I've got cash flow coming in, I can go back to the bank and I can refinance that. And even if it takes a couple of months, I'm not sweating, but
exactly.
That's the big difference. I think a lot of people coming into this, like, oh, how do I get the best rate? How do I do all this? I'm like, I can actually tell when people ask me those questions where they're at as an investor. I'm like, oh, you haven't been doing this long, have you? You're asking me about rate and not about how do I get approved. So you haven't been doing this that long.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Funny. Not to diminish, like everyone, you're at where you're at, and it's fair to ask those questions. You'll kind of just seek. To me, like you asked, like, what are my drainers? Dealing with banks is kind of like a drainer for me. I don't, which is why I'm not in the mortgage brokering business anymore. Doesn't exactly fit.
Yeah, that's a good realization. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, before we go, any final words of wisdom for investors that are, kind of wanting to grow, whether they're growing their business or they're growing their investment portfolio? Any parting words of wisdom here?
Just take time to figure out what it is you want. Don't rush in. It's a marathon. It's not a race. And get clear on your goals and what it is you're good at and what your skill sets are. And remember that, as much as real estate is an investment, your own brain and your knowledge is an investment, and the people that could potentially help you grow are an investment as well. So, we always want to focus on the best deal and the best property. And I'm starting to realize that some of my best deals are coming from hiring the best people.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's really, really valuable. I think you hear it, right? It's cliche. Network is net worth. It is true. And a lot of people don't want to admit that maybe, but I certainly think it is, which is why a big part of why I created this podcast, to just create that network, to create the connections, because you never know down the road who you might encounter that it's a win-win scenario kind of thing. So
yeah, and I think you're doing a really good job of that, because the people that I talk to often bring up your name in this podcast as a really good resource of content. So I think you're doing a great job in providing a really good service and impacting a lot of people, at least that I know in the industry, who often mention you and reference you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate that. So thanks so much for coming on. I know we've been trying to arrange this for a while, so it was good. It was good to make that happen. And I'll look forward to staying in touch with you. And if you've got a special deal that you need somebody to close on real quick, and it's
You're my guy.
if it's just the crappiest house you've got, get it for a real deal, I'm in.
I love it.
I don't even mind. Like if I got to rip it down, I don't even mind that. So
Cool.
Keep me in mind. Anywho, Ryan, really appreciate it. Nice to finally meet you. And we'll talk soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Please make sure to share this episode far and wide. Help it help more people. I really appreciate you tuning in. Thanks. I'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, I just wanted to take a moment and give a shout out to a couple of very important local businesses to me. As you know, this lockdown has been tough on everyone, and small businesses have been taking the brunt of it. So there's two specific businesses I wanted to give a shout out to. This is a completely unpaid promotion. They didn't ask me to do this, but I wanted to give them a shout out because I think they're really important and I want to see them be successful. So one is New York Men's Grooming Lounge here in Burlington, Ontario. I always see Sergio every month. They do a fantastic job. Their atmosphere there is fantastic. There's usually some Frank Sinatra playing in the background. They're a great establishment, even if you just want to go in and have an espresso or have a beer and chat. It really is a lounge and social location, which is just such a unique concept in today's market. Really like those guys. I really want to see them succeed. If you're looking for a fantastic men's haircut and grooming experience, I highly recommend them. The next one I wanted to give a shout out to is Dr. Mike White over at the Momentum Health Clinic in Hamilton. Dr. Mike has been able to help me many times over the years when I've hurt my back. He's a chiropractor, so I'd be in a position where I couldn't even walk, I couldn't turn. I was in an agonizing pain, and I'd go to Dr. Mike, and usually I'm 100% better within a week. Now, I know it's a touchy thing with a medical service, so always consult with your medical professional before seeking any form of treatment. I just wanted to let you know my experience here, and I certainly think Mike White is worth considering. I've included the details for both of these contacts in my show notes. Please show them support if you see fit. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.